Hello, welcome to SesayArts in Conversation. My name is Arpita Ghoshal. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Phyllis Webstad, who most of us already know through her books and the grassroots movement she began in 2013 called Orange Shirt Day, that is now observed across the country on September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Phyllis comes from mixed Secwepemc and Irish-French heritage and was born in Dog Creek, British Columbia, and now lives in Williams Lake, British Columbia. Today, Phyllis is married, has one son, a stepson, and 5 grandchildren. She is the founder and ambassador of the Orange Shirt Society and tours the country telling her story and raising awareness about the impacts of the residential school system. She is beloved by readers of all ages for her books, The Orange Shirt Story and Phyllis's Orange Shirt. It's my pleasure to speak with her today about her newest picture book, Every Child Matters, beautifully illustrated by Carleen Harvey and just released by Medicine Wheel Publishing, as well as the widespread impact of Orange Shirt Day. Phyllis, thank you so much for joining me to talk about your newest picture book, Every Child Matters, which just came out on Tuesday on August the 8th. Congratulations, it's a beautiful, heart-touching book.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me and having this interview to talk more about my book, Every Child Matters.
It's an honor. It's an absolute honor to speak with you. Before we talk about Every Child Matters, I wonder if I can just go back to your first picture book for a moment, which is about to celebrate its 10th anniversary, right? It's going to be the 10th year of Orange Shirt Day.
Orange Shirt Day started in 2013, and we chose September because that's the time of the year that children were taken from their homes and their families. And we chose the 30th because we wanted teachers time to settle in and teach about the history and time to plan an event. Originally, it was for the area that I live in, the Caribou-Chilcotin, the Williams Lake area. And through social media, it became what it is today. And so that was 2013. This year is the 10th year of Orange Shirt Day. I was getting invitations to go and tell my story to elementary and to high schools. In the beginning, there wasn't any corporates or business, or it was just all elementary and high school. And I thought, if I have a book with pictures, it would be easier to tell my story rather than just me standing there trying to tell these young students what happened and about my Orange Shirt story. So the books have always The children have always been my motivation for the books. My first book, The Orange Shirt Story, which is available in English, French, as well as Secwepemc, my language. And there's also curriculum that goes with it for teachers and a poster for their classrooms. So that book came out in 2018. And it took that long to formulate and find a publisher, and ever since then, we've had a book basically every year. And this year, it's Every Child Matters, as you can see in the background there.
So, Phyllis, did you expect that your story, which you said took decades for you to tell, to have the impact that it has? That you would be subsequently writing, many books afterwards?
Ever since Orange Shirt Day started, it's like it's been divinely guided, and I really believe that something is at play. The creator, and I know the children, are behind this Orange Shirt movement, as I've heard it called. It has a life of its own, and I started doing this paid full-time in April of 2019 because I needed to insert myself into what was happening, to let people know that there is a person and an organization, Orange Shirt Society, behind the Orange Shirt movement. Even though I've been doing this a little over 4 years full-time, there are still organizations and individuals that have no idea I exist or the society exists. So there's a lot of work to do. And with the book, I wanted to explain what is meant behind the meaning Every Child Matters, as we would be the last little while accused of copying Black Lives Matter. But we did not. BLM was born in July of 2013, and Orange Shirt Day, Every Child Matters was born in April of 2013. BLM got a lot of press in the beginning. We did not. And lately, because of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we've gotten a lot of press. So I can see why people think that we copied, but we did not.
Let's talk about your book then, which I just reread before our interview.
Mm-hmm.
And such beautiful poetic language in the telling of this book.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come to write it?
Yeah, with all the other books, it was telling of my orange shirt story, what that was like, what happened. But I'd never really told the history of myself as an Indigenous person or Indigenous people. And the reason we chose Every Child Matters in 2013 was when I told my orange shirt story, I shared how I felt that nobody cared that I didn't matter when I was at the mission for that 1 year. I could be sick, tired, lonely, hungry, sad, mad. 5 and 6-year-olds should not be comforting each other, and that's what was happening. There wasn't an adult to come and make it better when we were crying our eyes out at night. Survivors are adults and elders now, but they were children when they were at these so-called schools. They mattered, and they still matter today, like even as adults. And then there's the children that never came home. They matter. There's people alive today that have brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles that never came home, and they're buried somewhere outside in the grounds of these so-called schools. And where I am right now, we're situated on the Sugarcane Reserve, the Williams Lake First Nation, about 15 minutes outside of Williams Lake, and down the road, our office is on Mission Road, named after the mission, the St. Joseph Indian Residential School, where 3 generations of my family attended. And they have finished 2 phases of searches. So just minutes down the road, there are children that are waiting to be excavated and repatriated and brought home. So Orange Shirt Day was created to honor survivors and their families and to remember those that never made it home. And Every Child Matters is attached to Orange Shirt Day. So it all goes together, and it was created together. And in the book, I wanted to start with the way things were before colonial times, with our dances, our songs, our language, the teachings, our culture, and our families were together. And then with the colonial entrance, and along with that, the disease, the smallpox, the being put onto reserves, the Indian Act, and then the residential schools, about how our dances weren't sung. It was actually illegal to do that for a lot of years. And of course, my granny was not allowed to talk her language, the Secwepemc language, and as a result didn't teach her children and myself. Our teachings and our ceremonies were interrupted because the children were away from home for 10 months of the year, and our families were broken. And I'm so proud. I have 1 son, 5 grandchildren. I never did have any more children, but my son and his wife are the first in 5 generations to raise their own children. So Granny, Mom, me, and my son didn't have that. So the 5th generation, my grandchildren are being raised under the same roof as their mother and their father. And what a difference that's going to make in the generations to come of our family. And I just can't say how proud I am of my son and his wife. You know, they struggle. Who has a family of 5 these days in this economy? And so there's nothing I won't do to help them to survive in this world. And I never did have any more children, so it's been an honor and a blessing to be there since they were babies. And the oldest one turns 19 on August 11th, and to watch him from a baby to now, it's just, yeah, I'm just so happy to be a grandmother and to be there for them.
The young readers who will be reading Every Child Matters, how simply and accessibly you've conveyed this horrific history. Do you want to talk a little bit about the language that you've used? Because I read it and it's almost like reading a poem, and I believe it's deceptively simple in terms of the information and the themes and the topics that you're conveying, which the youngest readers will be able to understand.
Yeah, and that's been the, I guess, the goal from the very beginning, is that Orange Shirt Day, Every Child Matters would be a conversation starter. My story is not unique. There were 150,000 children taken from their homes and their families. They have stories as well. Every survivor, every intergenerational survivor. As I'm intergenerational as well, my mother attended, my grandmother. My mother is intergenerational, her mother attended. My son was at the last operating residential school in Canada. I've always had a hard time to have words to describe my life and my experiences. I've had to learn the vocabulary. So I choose my words wisely, and I speak slowly when I talk, because I am choosing my words. And I think that's what you're seeing in the book, is that contemplation of is this the right word, and what am I trying to say? And a lot of time and thought and energy and heartfelt feeling went into this. And so the book talks about how it was, and then with not being able to dance or sing, and then telling my story about getting to the mission and what that was like, but then being joyful again, learning the dances. And I believe on some level all across Canada, all Indigenous people are learning and relearning, and those that grew up in the traditional way are teaching. And it's happening all across Canada. As Murray Sinclair said, like, we as survivors, myself as a survivor, was not allowed to be who I was meant to be. My mom, my grandmother, the same. So in this day and age, my grandchildren are growing up to be who they were meant to be. And the children reading these books are the same. They're growing up to be who they were meant to be. And what a change that's going to make in society. And I just turned 56 this year, and I hope to live, I don't know, another 20 years or more.
At least.
And I look forward to witnessing the change in this world before I leave, compared to what it was like growing up, and the racism, and the people my age didn't learn in school about what happened to us about residential schools. Somebody could have a PhD and they might have read a chapter in a book in one of their courses. And even at home, in our own homes, it wasn't discussed. We didn't talk about residential school. My own mother did not know I went until 2007, when the federal government was giving us monies for our time spent there. And it wasn't until I was filling out the form to get my money that my mom found out that I had attended, and this was 2007. So it's not something that we talked about then, and a little bit more so now, but not even, it's still painful. I went for 1 year. It's hard enough for me to talk about. My mom went for 10. She was so traumatized by that 10-year experience. She couldn't care for me. So I was left with my granny. And then my aunt took me when I was 10. So it's my hope that this book for Indigenous communities, people, families, truth and reconciliation needs to happen within our families and our communities, as well as on the Canadian scale. So it's my hope that this book will open up that conversation within Indigenous families to be able to talk about the history, what happened, and the feeling. My granny talked about what happened, but she'd never talk about what it felt like. She would say, this happened, or we went here, we went there, this person did that, but not how she felt. And because I feel if she went there, she's probably afraid that she'd never re-emerge from the feeling part of it. So she just chose to never go there.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of more children understanding the history and the trauma inflicted by residential schools, and your choice to have Orange Shirt Day in September, it is widely observed. And speaking as a teacher, it has become a topic of significant importance annually. What I want to ask you is, how can teachers use your books, Every Child Matters being the newest one, to teach more deeply about Indian residential schools beyond Orange Shirt Day? Because we can't keep it to one day, right? Which I believe many people do. But as you said, it should be a conversation starter for a conversation that's ongoing. So do you have any suggestions for teachers?
Yes. My third grandson is 7 years old, and I have been invited to his classroom a couple of times. And in his school, they have Orange Shirt Day once a month. I didn't know that, and I was in Kamloops, and my grandson's, Grandma, I need an orange shirt. It's Orange Shirt Day tomorrow. I didn't know what he was talking about. And I didn't, usually when I go there, it's, there's 5 of them. So it's, everybody's talking, things are going on. And so I happened to pick him up the next day at school, and there's all these orange shirts. It's like, what's going on? He says, Grandma, I told you today was Orange Shirt Day, or tomorrow was Orange Shirt Day. So that's what they're choosing to do in their school in Kamloops. It's a public school. I've heard all kinds of different scenarios across Canada. Some it's twice a year, maybe some it's every Friday. But I believe all across Canada, every day somebody somewhere is wearing an orange shirt and having conversations. So, it's surpassed what it was created for. We thought once a year, at least once a year, because the Murray Sinclair, who headed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, when we were talking about Orange Shirt Day in 2013, he had a video online challenging Canadians to keep the conversation going after the TRC wrapped up. And as we know, the final report was June of 2015. So Orange Shirt Day was in response originally for just our area, for the mission, to keep the conversation happening once a year. But the whole story is in the book Orange Shirt Day. That tells the whole story of how it started. But originally it was in response to Murray Sinclair's challenge.
I want to talk about the illustrations in Every Child Matters, Carleen Harvey's very vibrant and evocative illustrations, which are such a brilliant complement to your text. Do you want to talk a little bit about how Carleen's illustrations help to tell your story?
Yeah, in all of my books, I've never wanted real cartoony characters because, I wanted it to be as lifelike as possible, but a bit cartoony, if that makes sense, because we're talking about a real history, like what happened to us, and it's not fiction. So I didn't want it to look, with the big eyes or I wanted it as as real as possible, but still be cartoony enough so that the children would be engaged. And that's what I liked about Carlene when we were looking at the samples, was her way of capturing that.
You've been very generous with your time, Phyllis, and I'm thinking about your young readers. In the last questions I kind of planned for you, I'm thinking about my students, I'm thinking about the students of my colleagues, friends of your grandchildren. What would you like young readers to know about you? Anything that might surprise them? Anything about you personally?
Yeah, I haven't engaged with elementary schools in a while, and I was telling my assistant I need to go like to a couple, I think in September, just locally. But I get mail from students, and I like one. She said, "I'm a little bit crazy. Are you?"
That's so cute.
Yeah. And I thought, yeah, I'm a little bit crazy. I not so much now, but like because I had my son really young. I was in grade 8, and I didn't get to be a teenager. I always had him to think about, because I wasn't raised by my mother, and I was determined that I was going to be his mother at a young age. And so when he finally graduated, I became an adolescent, and I jumped out of an airplane, and I did a tandem skydive, and I still like that sort of thing these days. Like, I want to go up in a hot air balloon and do stuff like that. So I really want to experience life in the world, and I wanted to go on one of those. It's kind of like a go-kart, but it's on a rail line where you hang on and you go through all of these. So like that kind of stuff.
You're a little bit of a thrill seeker.
Yeah.
We think about Phyllis Webstad as a little bit of a thrill seeker.
Yeah. I don't like whitewater rafting, but I've rafted on the Fraser River numerous times. We've, gotten into a little bit of whitewater, but with river rafting, you don't have to wear a helmet. So, but whitewater, I wouldn't like. That's too extreme. So I do like to experience things that are fun and make you forget about the hardships in life, or maybe what you're going through, or just something to have fun and to laugh and to scream and
exhilarate you.
Yeah.
Phyllis, I want to thank you so much for speaking with me, not only about the beautiful Every Child Matters, but your other books, How Orange Shirt Day Began. And I want to thank you for being an inspiration. Thank you so much, Phyllis.
Yes, you as well, Cooksham. Thank you.